Why did Pharaoh's daughter have a Hebrew woman brought in to nurse the child? Why not use an Egyptian? Well, according to Josephus, Pharaoh's daughter tried to nurse Moses with an Egyptian woman, but he refused to take her breast. And this wasn't a one-off. The child refused every attempt of multiple other Egyptian women to nurse him. And it was only after all of these failures that Miriam recommended finding a Hebrew woman, suggesting that the child might be willing to accept the breast of a woman of his own race. The rabbis went further still, explaining how the mouth that would someday speak with God could not drink from the breast of a woman unclean. For them, it was unthinkable that an Egyptian woman could have the privilege of feeding the babe who would one day speak with the Holy One of Israel. Contempt, it seems, is often mutual. So what does all this have to do with us? What are followers of Christ to do in a world incapable of living together amidst difference? In a world divided by race, politics, religion, theology, economy, gender, sexual identity, oftentimes all of these, all at the same time. How do we bear witness to the Prince of Peace? I want us to look back at Exodus 1:8, one of the more haunting verses in all the Bible. The Pharaoh did not know Joseph, nor I think did Pharaoh want to know Joseph. See, this tells me that when Pharaoh was making all of his deliberations and pronouncements about the lives of Hebrew people, there were no Hebrews in the room. Pharaoh was speaking into an echo chamber, and all he heard was the reflection of his own tribal assumptions. Compare this with the two midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. There's an interesting ambiguity in the manuscripts here. Some seem to suggest that the midwives were Hebrews, while others leave open the possibility that they were Egyptians. Personally, I'm convinced that the story makes more sense if the midwives are Egyptians. After all, it doesn't appear that Pharaoh knows or wants to know or deal with any of the Hebrews. And Pharaoh seems to expect that the midwives would be willing to kill Hebrew children, which seems a bit much to assume of Hebrew women. And the text relates the midwives' intervention and subsequent blessing by God as if it was a surprising and noteworthy circumstance. This begs the question, according to this reading, what would make a couple of Egyptian women who were born Egyptians, socialized by their culture to fear Hebrews, and commanded by Pharaoh to kill baby boys, what would cause them to disobey? Why did they choose life instead of death? And when exactly did they decide to defy Pharaoh? Could it be that they had every intention of following Pharaoh's orders until they came face to face with Hebrew mothers and their newborns, discovering that these others were human beings too? Could it be that they were heartbroken by the fear of these new mothers who, after long pregnancies and painful labor, wondered if they would ever be able to hold their babies before they were taken away? Could it be that the midwives were reminded of their own experiences in childbirth and the indescribable love they had for their own children? Did they discover what Stephen Cherry calls a distasteful empathy, an understanding for the other or the enemy that we never really wanted to have? I don't pretend to have all the answers, nor am I trying to do anything as ambitious as solve a problem that's plagued humankind from the beginning. I also think it's important to reemphasize that tribes are inevitable. We can't escape being shaped by particular traditions, nor can we avoid the responsibility of making difficult decisions between conflicting options and opinions about what our communal norms should be. As Christians, we are committed to the way of Jesus the Christ. But we can and must, I think, work to keep our communities and traditions open enough to hear a word from beyond. God is who God is, not necessarily who we think God is. God will be who God will be, not necessarily who we think God should be. And God loves to speak from the strangest of places. I think of Jesus. He was born into a Jewish family, socialized as a Jew, sent by his Abba to the children of the house of Israel, and yet he remained open to others. For example, Jesus, a male Jew, recognized a word from God in the voice of a Syro-Phoenician woman, of all people. Yes, even the dogs have claim to God's love. Anne Lamott has said you can safely conclude you've created God in your own image when it turns out God hates all the same people you do. When the church stops listening to those around us, we are acting as if we know all there is to know about an infinite God. We are operating under the assumption that those other people, who we claim are made in God's image, nevertheless have nothing of God to image to us. God is everywhere, we say, just not there, just not with them, because if we really believe that God is everywhere, I think we would be listening to others to learn about the work of God in their lives rather than talking like we already have all the answers. When we stop listening, when we know not Joseph, we're in danger of becoming Pharaoh and aligning ourselves against the God of justice. And when we exclude others, we also eliminate the means by which God might speak to us. If I could make one suggestion about reforming the church in Christ Sees a Difference, it might be this. Let's break open the echo chamber by covenanting with God to know our neighbors and include them in our discernment practices. I'll admit it's a simple idea, but I think it's no less radical for that. Imagine, what if Christian men stopped gathering together to make decisions about the roles of Christian women without Christian women who feel called to ministry being present in the room, offering their own understanding? What if white Christians stopped offering commentary on what is or isn't appropriate political action by black persons without knowing them and listening to their stories? What if American Christians refused to vote on immigration legislation until they, spent some time with immigrants or read the works of someone who has? What if heterosexual Christians, instead of passing reactionary bylaws excluding LGBT persons, actually invited an LGBT person to participate in their deliberations? In short, what if we actually took the time to discern the will of God in the presence of others instead of assuming God's will in their absence? You know what they say about those who assume? And it's awfully hard to love neighbors we're unwilling to know. And I think if you take anything from this morning, remember this: it's really hard to love somebody you're not willing to get to know. The thing I love about our passage from Galatians 2 is how the Apostle Paul breaks open the echo chamber. Picture this: a group of circumcised Jews is gathering together to decide what they're going to do with the bodies of uncircumcised Gentiles. But Paul refuses to go alone. He brings Titus, an uncircumcised Gentile, and stands him in the middle of the room. I wonder if they would have come to the same conclusion if Titus had not been there. It's as if Paul said to those so-called pillars of early Christianity, you're not going to make a decision about Gentile bodies without looking a Gentile in the face and giving him the opportunity to speak back. May we all be so bold. Now, I'm not naive to think this kind of inter-tribe discernment is going to solve all problems of difference. It would be awkward and challenging work. And we might find that we still cannot agree on some things, perhaps many things. But at least we would know and be known by each other. We cannot predetermine the outcome, but we can redress some of the injustices in the process. And who knows? Maybe in practicing vulnerable presence with those different from us, we will glimpse their humanity, and they will glimpse ours. Maybe we will find, like the saints of old, entertaining angels unawares. Maybe we will open ourselves up to hear a word from the Lord. Maybe we will gain a brother or a sister. So let's break open the echo chamber. Let's covenant with God to know our neighbors and include them in our discernment practices. Let's actually take the time to discern the will of God rather than assuming God's will in their absence. And in so doing, may we all become midwives of the kingdom of God. Thank you.
Gracious God, the question reverberates through the millennia: who is my neighbor? Forgive us of the sin of so often answering the question according to the criteria of the face in the mirror. Give us the courage to shatter the prejudiced mirrors and infect us deeply with the love shown when you, the ultimate outsider, came to be one of us. Teach us to love as you have loved us. In the name of Jesus, amen. You are dismissed.